Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Doodles to Dazzle. I'm Charlie.
And I'm Barbara.
And today we're going to talk about juggling all these different hats that we wear. Being a parent, being artists, being entrepreneurs, being
partners. Don't forget.
Yes, that too. Sorry, that comes first. Right, darling? So we're going to be diving into this, and we're going to talk about how communication is the key to managing all these different hats, right?
That's right. Let's dive in.
Let's dive in. All right. You all have heard our journey before, so we're only going to touch and go for those who haven't heard it. If you would like to learn more, you can go to our first episode where we do go into more detail. So this all began back in the pandemic when we started our art journey.
That's right. We started after our wedding with painting some wooden blocks because we got insanely bored after being locked up with the TV.
Yes.
So we were desperate for a different activity. That's how we started painting. We loved it so much. We continued to do that until, we're here pursuing an artist's career.
Basically, yeah. And here we are. Let's go into more about what it is being in a relationship where both Barbara and I, we share the same passion for making art. We share being parents, being husband, wife, all that. But it's not an easy thing to navigate and wear these different hats, because we find that there is a need for constant communication between both of us to maintain a focus on these different areas of our life, to maintain consistent growth and advancement, right? So that we don't get stuck, so that we don't reach a point where we're not aligned on goals and ideas and hopes and dreams, so that we're taking all these different aspects of our journeys together.
Yes, that's correct. The thing is that most people, they have their work life and they have their life at home.
Yeah.
And with us, it's combined.
Yes.
So that comes with a lot of laughter, a lot of joy, for sure, but also a lot of challenges to overcome. And for us, we find that we overcome those challenges through communication.
Yes.
Yeah. The thing is that when you're making art, when you're growing into art, when you're a starting artist and your partners, the thing is that we learn a lot from each other. We get a lot of energy from each other and inspiration also.
Yes.
Because you see your partner having fun with something that maybe you don't dare to do. That was the case for me a lot of times. Charlie, he went really into making portraits and stuff. And I was completely terrified of that, but he was having fun. So I was like, I'm missing out. I need to get into this action. I need to try it also. And because of that, I was able to overcome my fears.
Yes.
Also.
So there's a lot of growth and advancement simply because you hold each other accountable in a certain way. You are motivated with each other. You're bouncing ideas. You're getting feedback from each other.
You get inspired.
You find inspiration. So there's all of this good stuff happening. By now, we've worked on so many creative projects together. A few weeks ago, let's say 6 weeks ago or so, we painted our first store window. And before that, we'd done several wedding cards
and birth cards
also. We worked on art markets together, travel art series together. And it becomes important to have this open communication line, because being an artist means that you have a singular vision for what kind of expression you want to have. So working as artists together on the same project can also mean that sometimes your artistic visions don't align.
Yeah.
So how do you navigate these situations, Barbara?
The thing is, it all starts for me with communications. First, you have to see, okay, what is your vision? What is my vision? Discovering that a little bit.
What helps in those scenarios?
It's a bit of introspection, I think. And the more that you are aligned with the artist that you are, the more clear that will become.
Okay.
Also.
But how does that mean, like, when it came to communicating? Does it mean like we do brainstorming sessions together?
It can be.
Right.
It can be, but it can be also that you have a different vision for a singular project as well. And that can happen, and that's also okay. But the thing there is, like in a good marriage, first lesson is compromise, right? So you have to find the healthy compromise.
Yes.
Sometimes. And sometimes it's a little difficult to find it, but there, if you're doing a project, and for a client, you have to keep your client in mind there. What is the best for the client?
Yes. And I find that when you're working on a project together, it's very important that you, in a certain, even in an informal way, you define the roles, right?
Yes.
For example, yes.
Who's lead?
Exactly.
And also letting go of your ego.
Yes.
Also.
In most of these situations, for example, Barbara and I have felt that, or I definitely have felt that Barbara should take the lead in most of these projects, simply because she's the one who's going to be putting most of the time in it. And she has the vision of Charbi as a whole, our art business as a whole. She's the one who does most of the work there. She has the vision for the kind of work and the quality of work we do. So with that vision in mind, I do feel that she has the right to be and take lead in these projects, unless, of course, she says, Charlie, I want you to do it because I'm working on something else, or I can only support in a minimal capacity because I'm dodging a lot of responsibilities, etc. But it's better to define, okay, who's going to take lead?
Yes,
and
I agree.
What are the expectations? Having roles, responsibilities, the better you define it, the easier it becomes to manage it.
Yes, because otherwise you just end up both being disappointed.
Yes.
And lose a lot of time. And time is the only thing we can't get back, right?
Yes, exactly. And it can be from project to project. Like,
yeah, definitely.
It's not like you have to have, I mean, it's good to have roles and responsibilities within your business as a whole, for sure, and within your marriage and relationship, definitely. When you have certain responsibilities around the house and things like that, definitely. These kinds of expectations and defining your roles within your partnership is very important.
Yes.
And that goes into your artistic journey.
Yes. Yes, indeed. The thing is, you have to find the balance that works for you.
Yes.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that it feels, or that other people would come and, oh, that's fair.
Yes.
Right? Because even not being, we're a creators couple, but even in the household responsibility, you could be like, okay, but it's not fair.
Yeah.
Certain tasks, and it always falls onto somebody or whatever.
Yes.
If somebody else would look at your relationship with a magnifying glass, right? But the thing is that you have to just find the balance that works for you.
Yeah. And
if you're perfectly happy with always doing the dishes and your partner is perfectly happy doing something else, and that works,
yes,
then that's completely fine.
Exactly.
And this applies also to working together as creatives.
Yes.
You have to find the balance that works for you.
Yeah.
And sometimes the responsibilities or somebody else will take lead, or some part of the project will be mostly for one of us, basically. But that's also okay, because there's so many other parts that maybe are not so visible, or you know, or it's just a different part of another project or whatever. And maybe the other person takes more lead there. And that's the thing. You have to find that balance. And that, I think, comes a lot through good communication.
Yes. No. And this is also the same for when you're managing disagreements, for example. There will be times where you don't have the same goals, or your vision is not the same, right? So what are some examples where we weren't aligned, Barbara? The earliest I can think of is when I wasn't aligned with the Charbi vision, right?
Yeah, there was definitely that.
There was a disconnect. So going back some time ago, Barbara was full on working on Charbi, working very hard, day and night, getting the business set up and working on many projects, on the e-commerce, all of this stuff.
Yes. And at that point, sometimes it felt a bit like I kept trying to instigate that fire back into you, but you were struggling yourself with just mindfulness.
Yeah, I was struggling a lot because, of course, when you're working on a business together, especially in a field like art, it can be very uncertain. There's the usual challenges, financial pressures, social responsibility, social pressures, all this stuff that come into play. And I felt like I'm having my normal day job. On top of that, having to put in all of this took a lot from me. And if you're working on something like this, it takes a lot out of you. So for me, it became very difficult to want to take part in the building up of Charbi. Mm-hmm. And that was where I think our visions were quite misaligned, because you really were trying to light this fire under me, but I didn't feel so motivated myself. Mm-hmm. While I was doing my best to motivate you and support you on this journey, I didn't feel like I could be a part of it.
Yeah, it was one of those tricky moments, right? It was definitely not easy to figure out that balance, and that came, after talking. Okay, what is happening? What
trying
are you feeling? Trying
right?
to understand.
Yeah.
First of all, yourself, what you're going through, and trying to understand your partner, and then also finding ways to communicate, to help them out of that.
Yes.
And to have a person get on having insights, you can't force it, right?
No, of course.
You can't, as a partner, maybe you want things to happen faster.
Yes.
Everybody's on their own journey, and you also have to be okay with that.
Yes.
And the only thing that you can do is try to see where you can help.
Yes. Yes. I think that constant conversations that you have as a couple is very important on managing these hopes, expectations, and things like that. And that's what actually helped me to be a bit more on board with Charbi and think about, okay, how can I contribute? How can I bring my work experience into Charbi to build it up? Whether it was building the website, launching the podcast, all these things that came from feeling like I've gained all these years of work experience. How can I do that?
Yes.
How can I bring it in? Feeling like I'm part of the team, feeling like I'm not just a background support for Barbara, but rather how can I take an active role in enhancing this shared vision that we have. Mm-hmm. But that took time and conversations.
Yes.
It's trying to understand, what are my motivations? Why am I doing this? Why should I share the same vision or goals as Barbara? All that.
And sometimes you have to redefine those goals as well.
Yes.
Sometimes you need to just talk it out and just see, okay, if this is not working for you, mm-hmm. what would work for you?
Yes.
I mean, we had so many conversations like that also, where I asked you, okay, so what would you like to bring to Charbi?
Yeah.
For some time, I was there doing things a lot, won't say it by myself, but I was taking a big chunk.
You were doing 99% of it. I would always say that. Yeah.
So during that time also, Charbi became a lot more from my expression, just because I was putting in that time there. And I think the struggle that you faced at that point is that it became so much more my things rather than yours. And I think
our thing,
our thing. Yeah. And I think you felt a bit lost into that. Like, who am I?
Yes. What is my voice, my artistic expression? Yeah. How would that come into Charbi? Yeah. Yes, that was always a bit of a struggle.
Yeah.
And sometimes even now it can be, simply because when, as an artist, you have your own vision of things, you have your own expression, and that can be very challenging to align with when you have a very different artistic style or expression. If you look at our social media channels, you'll see the difference between the way Barbara and I do.
Yeah, we have a different artistic style.
Yes.
But honestly, I think that's one of our strengths also. Because of that, exactly, we appeal to more people.
Yes.
because my things are more feminine, they're more cute, but yours will appeal more to men, and they're a bit more maybe rough around the edges, but that's exactly what makes it so beautiful. And that's the thing. Art can be beautiful in so many different expressions.
Exactly.
And in fact, I find it really fun to see, because right now we're doing the Inktober challenge, which is another collaboration for us.
So for those who don't know, that's 31 days of, well, basically dishing out an artistic piece every day for the 31 days. And there are these word prompts that you need to base your piece off. So yesterday, for example, we had
Celestial Picnic,
right? And then we basically create a piece based on your interpretation of what those words mean to you. So if you want to take a look at what Barbara and I made, you can go to our social media channel.
Because it's very different.
Yes.
But I would say, I mean, it's funny because for me, it's like, oh, I love yours. And you're like, oh, I love yours.
Yes.
For different reasons. And that's another challenge also, I think, as an artist, because at this point, I think we could say that we're quite good artists, is that when you see each other's work, is that you feel maybe a bit, I won't say intimidated, but you feel a bit like, oh, his art is better than mine. Those thoughts, sometimes they come in.
Yes.
And the thing is that that's just completely relevant because you're just different.
Yes.
Right? And you have to come to terms also with that.
Yes. I think a huge part about working together as a couple and shared interests and passion and work, it's important to be okay that you're going to be good at some things, not so good at some things, and be okay with being who you are and what it is you're dishing out.
Yeah. Play your strengths.
Yes.
Basically.
Exactly.
In every partnership, I mean, every person has their strengths.
Yes.
Right? And this is as an artist, as partners in the just day to day.
Yes.
As being parents and all that, everybody has their strengths and their weaknesses. And if you're going to force your partner to just for things to be fair.
Yes.
That he has to do his weaknesses, then things are not going to go as smoothly.
Yes.
You can't expect that.
Yeah, that's a funny thing to say, because I think many people get caught up in what is fair.
Yeah.
But what they don't realize is especially if you're in a healthy relationship, that balance forms after some time of just living together. You piggyback on each other's strengths and cover each other's weaknesses.
Yeah.
Before you know it, you find a nice balance.
Yeah. Like, I mean, some days after a long day of work, maybe I dealt with our daughter all day or something, and I'm fully exhausted. Maybe I cooked, I don't know. But then I don't have the energy to also clean the kitchen, for example.
Yeah.
But then on those times, Charlie will say, okay, you just take rest and I will do it. Or maybe he cooked and is cleaning
up. Yeah.
For the sake for things being fair.
Yes.
You would really, it would be uncomfortable for everybody.
Yes.
Right?
You cannot quantify these things.
No. The moment you start counting, you lose.
Yes. Sure, you have to have balance in relationships, and that is a feeling you go off of, right?
Yeah.
You, in an unbalanced relationship, you will feel like, man, this is not fair. Why am I doing everything? The moment you get these kinds of thoughts, you already know, okay, something's not right.
Yeah. And honestly, these are red flags, because you need to communicate at these points. This is the problem. Most people, when they have this, they start a fight.
Yes.
If you start a fight, that's not what you're supposed to do. What you're supposed to do is sit down
and have a talk.
Maybe first you take a breather. You feel, okay, you talk to yourself first, calm down and see, okay, why am I feeling that this is not fair? Is it really not fair, or am I going through something?
Yes.
What is happening? And then if you still feel that way after, let's say, 10 minutes or 10 counts or whatever, you go and talk to your partner about, why do you think this is not fair? Maybe we should have a conversation, and try to have a conversation that is not just, constructive for sure, but also go at it from a solution-oriented perspective.
Yes.
Yeah. Not for the sake of being right.
Yes.
So many people get caught up with that. Oh, I have to be right.
Yep. What is right gonna give you in the end, other than a little boost to your ego?
Yeah, exactly.
But beyond that, is it constructive? Is it building up on a healthy relationship? And then are you reaching a point of balance where you will have sustained happiness and contentment versus discontent over the imbalance that you might have simply because it's a battle of the egos,
Yeah.
So you don't want that kind of situation. And we're talking about all this from personal experience, where Barbara and I, on several occasions, give feedback to each other whenever we even have signs that, something is of imbalance. We express our concern, we talk it out, we reassure or come to an understanding, align on goals or whatever needs to be done. And we do our best to meet that so that we overcome such obstacles or concerns that come our way.
Yeah. And know that there's no such thing as a perfect relationship.
No.
Everybody has to talk to get to that place of like peace and happiness. It takes work.
Yes.
Right. This is in marriage. This is in a partnership, as being artists, as parents. It all starts with a healthy communication.
Yes.
And this starts with your mindset.
Yep.
It starts with your mindset into thinking that, okay, I want to have solutions rather than I want to be right.
Yes. You have to take a we mindset versus I mindset.
Yeah.
At least that's what we think is the way to a healthy relationship and a healthy marriage, should you want to go that way. And also a healthy partnership if you're working on a business or working on a project together. What are some of the tools that we use, Barbara?
It depends on the project, but something that you taught me is because I have a very chaotic brain.
Yes.
And because there's so many things to do, I can get a bit caught up in that. And you taught me to write things down and make a to-do list, because honestly, it feels great also checking off that to-do.
Yes.
And it gives you a little dopamine hit and it keeps you going to the next task. And maybe it doesn't even take as long as you thought it would have. So for me, making that to-do, it's really helpful. For more elaborate projects, we sometimes use several apps. For our wedding, for example, that was our first big project together.
That was our first big project with a decent sized budget and everything.
Yeah.
That was a fun project. I think honestly, working on that, we learned a lot. I'd say.
Honestly, we got really good at doing that and working together.
Yes.
But for that, we use some product management. Is that how you say it? Tools like Trello.
Yes.
And we also use Notion, not every day, but for certain things, for the overall view of thing or a bigger project where we have to break it down into more steps or have more deadlines or something, then we use these kind of things. But just a pen and notepad is already a really good tool.
You just need to put it down instead of just keeping it in your head, whatever it is, whether it's goals for you're working on a household project, you're working on an artist project, on a business, just put it down. Start with a to-do list. Think
about what's your focus here.
Yes.
What are the important things or the goals that you want to have that week, that month, that quarter, whatever. And this is both into art and business as well as relationships. You can have goals in that too, or in household chores as well.
Yeah. We also use things like reminders or calendar to keep track of activities, to keep track of chores that need to, when the garbage goes out, or when are we putting out social media content for Charbi. So you need to organize your life a bit. And I know it's not easy for many of you out there. Trust me, it's a struggle for us too. We're not the most organized people. Barbara and I, both of us, we're not. So for this, for us to do this is a very tough thing to do.
But it helps, guys. It helps so much.
Yes.
You just get a lot more productive by doing it.
Yes.
Because otherwise it just feels like you're putting out fires all the time. And by the end of the day, you don't remember which fires you even put out. It feels a bit that like you're going through the day.
Yes. And it's also a good way to keep track of things you have done, because that can be a good way to feel appreciation, gratitude, to develop your own self-confidence. Oh, I've done these things, or we've done these things as a couple. We've handled these stuff. I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
So you go back to the good stuff instead of focusing on things you've not been able to get to, which is also okay. But if you're living chaotically without organization, without communication, you're just going to make your life much harder.
Yeah. And just get stressed out.
Yeah.
On a daily basis.
Like one of the things Barbara recently made for Charbi was she took this big piece of paper and she wrote down the roadmap.
Yeah.
For projects that she's working on, we're working on. And
with the deadlines,
with the
in
release
place
deadline was basically for Q3, Q4, 2023. And we're basically have an idea of, okay, what are the activities we're busy with the rest of the year?
Yeah.
This can be applied to any aspect of your life. And it's a good thing to have. And it's stuck on our door, on the kitchen door. We can see it every day. We look at it right now and we have an idea. Okay, if you feel lost, I have so many things to do. You can look at that and be like, okay, that is my goal. That is my timeline I'm working with.
Yeah.
And we're both on the same page, Barbara and I.
Yeah.
So you communicate, you align, you work on this together.
Yeah. And it's not aligning once, it's aligning multiple times.
Yes.
Maybe you need to every day have a conversation. Okay, where are we at? What are we going to do? How are we going to do it?
What needs to be pushed back?
What needs to be pushed back? What needs to be, what is our priority right now? And it doesn't have to be a long conversation, but if you take the time to do that, you will be a lot more productive.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this also applies to when you're working on art projects together.
For sure.
When we did the wedding cards, Barbara would ask me if I can make an art drawing of a certain piece that will be a part of the wedding card. And she was working on the overall design and she would put things together. She would ask me that.
Yeah.
And I would try to think, okay, how can I represent that within the artistic vision that she has based on the conversations she's had with her clients, all that. And that way I can meet those expectations and the vision that she's created. And at the same time, she's delegating instead of having to do everything by herself.
Yeah.
So that's how you have a balance. That's how you have teamwork.
Delegating is important.
Delegating is important. You need to ask for help.
And trust your partner.
Because many times I think, especially people who have grown to be very independent and who have a can-do or doer attitude, basically people who I would classify as doers. Often doers struggle with delegating.
Yes, present.
Yeah. Point at Barbara. Yes. So Barbara is someone who I would classify as a doer and who's constantly...
I had to learn to ask for help. For me, this was a big one. Because of how I was raised, and I was raised to be very independent. And while that's very good, it's also has its challenges because you can get overwhelmed because you're trying to do everything yourself. And it can be hard for your partner to come in that because, you're
at that point, it's too late already. You're stressed out.
But you can also maybe sometimes be a bit like a bulldog. Like this is my project. What are you doing here?
It's funny. Over the last months, basically since around earlier this year, I've been taking a more active role in helping build up Charbi.
Yes.
But because Barbara was working on it for some time as her baby, and she was putting in 99% of the work in, and she really laid the foundation for it, she also had moments where she was very protective or defensive.
Of course.
With my inputs.
Yeah.
Simply because it didn't align with her vision or her intent or goals or what she had in mind. So there were moments where my input would clash, and this was a struggle for both of us to have to navigate.
Yeah, right? Definitely. Because I also didn't want you to feel like you couldn't say anything, but it also felt a bit difficult for me because, like you said, I worked so much on it and suddenly it's a very different vision.
To have to share with it, right?
And to have to share that, and treat it as an equal.
Yes.
Also, so that was a bit of a challenge, but there again, we started communicating and finding our balance there. And sometimes I had to make some compromises. Sometimes Charlie had to make some compromises. And you have to open your mind.
You have to go from a place. We have to have these conversations from a place of respect and patience.
Yeah.
And being okay, right now, Barbara has been working on this the most, so it's okay if she takes the lead. Many times I tell her, remind her, it's okay, you take the lead. You're the one who's worked on this. I will support you.
Yes.
And if she still comes to me for looking for advice or my input, then I give my input as necessary. And now we're reaching more to a space where I'm proactively giving my input and she's proactively receiving it without feeling like, okay.
It was a bit uncomfortable in the beginning because it was a change.
Yes.
Every change is always a little difficult.
Yes.
Right? In the beginning. But for me, it was also important that you felt comfortable sharing it because honestly, sometimes your vision needs to be challenged.
Yes.
Maybe you are too much locked into your own vision and maybe it's good to shake things up.
Yes. And otherwise you get complacent. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's also a good thing to be challenged. It's a healthy thing for an artist also, I think, to be challenged that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you've got these tools that you can use, whether it's the project management tools, your book, Post-its, your phone for alarms and reminders, all this. There's all these tools to organize your lives, your goals, and what it is you do as a couple together. And then there's also the actionable steps that you can take actively with your partner, which is having the daily, how would you call it? Touch base with each other every day, even if it's for 5 minutes, to align on, okay, what needs to be done today? What needs to be done this week or this month? Yes. Make a list of it or whatever, if necessary, right?
Or put it in your calendar.
Yes.
Or make a to-do list.
Yes. And if you have any concerns, raise those concerns in a respectful way.
Yes. Maybe take a breather first.
Take a breather. You don't have to do all of this at the same time, people. But if there are certain things that are on your mind, you have to be willing to have these conversations with your partner. Yes. Don't keep it in. Yes. If not with your partner, who should, in our opinion, be your best friend. Yeah. Also, at least we are anyway.
Yeah.
You should be able to have these conversations. And if there are situations where you're not on the same page,
you have to find a way to get on that same page.
Yes. Yeah. And be okay that you might have to compromise. Be okay that you're not always going to get exactly what you want.
There's no I in team.
Yes. There isn't, right? It's not TIEM.
No. Should I touch you back?
All right. So that was an interesting talk. Sorry if we went too long with this. It's a slightly different format than what we're used to, but also I think it's a very important topic when especially to those of you navigating relationships while working on your careers or your own journeys, either together or separate. I think these are useful tips for you.
Yeah. So thank you so much for listening and for tuning in. And please share your experiences or questions. Ask us on Instagram or TikTok, or just tag us or send us a message. And
we'd love to hear what you think.
We'd love to hear what you think. Yeah.
And also, please pay a visit to our Etsy shop if you'd like to see our art on different products.
Or collaborations
and things like that. And if you did like this podcast, please do leave a review.
And that would be amazing.
Also share with your friends and family who you think might be of value and would appreciate what it is we're saying here. And I think that covers everything. So until next time.
Bye.
Toodles.